Welcome back. Gotham Graffiti episode number 28. We are here. We are getting this done fairly early, so this will be on time. Last week's or the previous episode should be on time. I believe it was on time, yeah?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so we're back on schedule. Everything's good to go. We are finishing out this week's cycle. My name is Gunnar. This is my cousin Scott. Y'all kind of know the drill by now. And what we're going to start today out with being that it is the last episode of Cycle. Y'all know these episodes are always kind of throw stuff at the wall. We're kind of a little bit more loose with these, which make them fun. So like we said last week, we do have pitch. At the end of the episode, it will be 3 new categories from the last time we did pitch. But we're going to start with talking about both the Deadpool trailer that released yesterday from when we're filming now, and then also just kind of trailers in general. I know you wanted to touch on us doing our cameo list from last week.
Yeah, because I know that if you watched last week's episode, if you haven't, go check it out. But we did talk about, we briefly talked about the, at the time, recent Deadpool trailer and some of the cameos that we would have liked to have seen, some of which being, like I said, 2008 Hulk, he said 2003 Hulk, we both said Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, Professor X, Blade, a bunch of people like that. Just people that we were hoping, when we eventually go watch this movie here in a couple days, we were hoping to see. But when we saw the trailer that got released yesterday, and if you have seen that, you know that there were a lot of cameos that were kind of thrown out there that we were kind of like, whoa, what? Oh, okay,
yeah,
all right, I guess they're in the movie.
And that wasn't the first time either.
And it kind of, we were kind of talking, and it became more of a broader conversation about how trailers within the last 5 to maybe even a decade, they have a tendency, not even just superhero movies, but even just trailers in general, where they will spoil the movie or spoil a really big plot point in the movie that would have been awesome to see on screen when you first go see it. So we're just going to kind of run through some trailers that we...
I have a question for you.
Okay.
I just on the spot got a intrigue of an idea. So coming from someone who's a casual... I would say we're both pretty casual Marvel fans. Obviously, we are not by any means DC fanboys who hate anything that's not it. DC is our pride and joy. That is where all of our fandom comes from.
Correct.
But a decent amount of my top 10 comic book characters are from Marvel. Same from him. We're just a little bit more casual in our knowledge. That being said, I'm a massive X-Men and Wolverine fan. That's one of my niches in Marvel, right? So as someone who's a casual Marvel fan and even a more casual Wolverine and X-Men fan, coming from watching the last 2 trailers, seeing both Sabretooth and then X-23, and also them showing Lady Deadpool, which the Lady Deadpool one doesn't make me as upset because I feel like it's going to be kind of just a riff, but still, we're counting it.
It's more of a goof.
We're counting it.
Right.
How do you feel, because I'll say how I feel after you answer, how do you feel as a casual fan of the product seeing this amount of cameos in the trailer lead up?
Well, I think...
Specifically just to Deadpool.
Specifically to Deadpool.
Just to this movie.
So I think the issue becomes, with going into Deadpool 3, I think the issue becomes, it's like, if they've already shown this many cameos in a trailer, first of all, if that's all the cameos we're getting, why did you ruin the movie with all the cameos that you could have given us in the movie itself?
Right.
But then it also begs the question, okay, if they're in the movie and there's other characters kind of like what we talked about last week, that seems like the movie could get extremely overcrowded really quickly, especially considering that this is the shortest Deadpool movie we've gotten thus far. It's only just over 2 hours.
To your point, don't forget, it wasn't in the trailer. Don't forget that when somebody caught set photos, there's a picture of Cyclops somewhere. So we know, to your point of them having more. So please continue.
Like, even within the trailer of stuff that people have caught, there's potential that Blade might have been in the background of one of these shots. Like you just said, the Cyclops. There was a reference at the very end, if you stayed to the end of the trailer, there was a reference where Deadpool was doing this, like annoying Logan in the car. So it's like, that's a Spider-Man illusion. So it's like, are we going to get a Spider-Man? So it's just like, I'm hoping, because the first 2 Deadpool movies were really good, I'm just hoping that because of the fact that they're finally in the MCU and now that Marvel has rights to all the 20th Century Fox characters, I'm hoping that this doesn't just become like, oh, hey, remember this guy that you really liked and you saw in that movie when you were 12? Yeah, he's here.
For
5 seconds.
For 20 seconds,
yeah, and it's like, okay, yeah. And like, I hope it doesn't just become smoke and mirrors and an amusement park show where it's like, hey, look at all these characters that we now have the rights to, and we're going to throw wherever we want.
That's a great way to put that.
That's what I'm concerned
Look at all
with.
these characters we have the rights to now.
Because, like, the fact that we're even getting a Deadpool and Wolverine movie in and of itself, like, no one really thought that this was ever going to happen. But then the fact you start throwing all of these other characters that either we haven't seen before or characters that we have seen in previous movies that a lot of people will be really excited about, I'm just afraid it's going to become too much to cram into a 2-hour movie. That's what I'm fearful of.
That's a good point, also the runtime, because it is a shorter movie.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, and I think that's a great take.
Yeah.
For me, as a pretty avid X-Men fan, I'm not a fan of it. To me, it's like, just do one.
Yeah.
I don't think by any means I don't want to come across as one of these guys that's like, you need to keep everything for the movie and there can't be any. It's like, they do. The trailers are to sell the movie, guys.
Right.
So I don't mind if you do just X-23, or you just do Lady Deadpool, or you just do Sabretooth, which I'll be honest, it should have just been, if they were going to do one, it should have just been X-23. With the ending of Logan a couple years ago, it's his daughter, it's a different universe Logan. Like, you know, you get that line in the trailer of like, in my world, you weren't the perfect guy either until you weren't, or whatever. So it's like, that should have been it. Save Sabretooth. That's Wolverine's Joker. Like, just save that. We don't need to see that. We were already going to go see the movie anyway. Lady Deadpool's fine. But yeah, like, and then like you said, my worry now is, because we've seen Sabretooth, Lady Deadpool, X-23, and there's the reference to Spider-Man, I'm like, crap, how many people are going to be in this movie?
Yeah.
Like, how many people are going to the point to where it's like, are they going to sacrifice some story?
Yeah.
In a 2-hour runtime, that is with credits, that you have a film degree. How long are credits after a movie? 10 minutes?
About 10 to 8 minutes.
So let's say the movie is actually an hour 49, hour 50.
Yeah.
So you've got to cram a finality, ending to this trilogy, and you're also going to try and cram. I'm afraid, as much as I love this movie, y'all know, I'm afraid it's going to get a little Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
I'm afraid it's going to get a little Spider-Man 3. We'll see. We both hope we're wrong.
Yes.
But that all being said, we're just going to kind of go through a couple examples of good and bad trailer runs and specific trailers that we think are great. So why don't you go ahead and give us a few?
So, I know this one's on your list too. I think No Way Home is... I think it's both a good example and a bad example. More of a bad example, though. The reason why I say that is because of the fact that with No Way Home, they shot themselves in the foot, because if they had not shown any of the villains in the trailer whatsoever, we wouldn't know what the movie's about. So like we would have no idea who he's fighting. We wouldn't know any of the plot points whatsoever or anything to get you excited about the movie.
Right.
But on the flip side of that, because of the fact that they showed the villains and the fact that they showed as many villains as they did, because in the first trailer we saw Doc Ock and like one shot of Green Goblin.
Yeah.
And then in the final trailer we saw all 5 or 6 of them, however many there are, you know, all of them essentially.
Yeah.
And so then it became, well, they're gonna have to have the other Spider-Man in it. So it's the issue is that they ruin the movie without ruining the movie, because like really and truly, a lot of the reason why people went and saw that movie wasn't because they were excited for Tom Holland's Spider-Man 3, is because they're like, are Tobey and Andrew going to be in it? And if they're not, why?
Right. Why are you using these villains?
Exactly. So I know if you want to touch on that one.
Yeah, I mean, while we're on it, I even think just from like lazy editing, dude, if y'all remember in the last trailer where it's that shot of, in the movie, it's the shot where after they all do their spin and they're jumping towards the villains. If you remember in the trailer, everybody picked up immediately. The way Tom was jumping, he was jumping like up. He was like almost like a post route. Like he was doing that.
Yeah.
And then Lizard was on the bottom of the screen and somehow gets hit in the jaw, but there's nothing there. And everybody was like, oh, well, somebody's showing up.
Yeah.
So I just think from little things like that even to the point you made where it's like, just do Goblin, or just do Doc Ock, or just do Electro, where it's like, we didn't need to see everything. And we didn't need to see it to where it was edited poorly, where we're like, all right, even if it's someone showing up in this movie.
Right.
That being said, I enjoyed No Way Home. It's not a slide on the movie.
Right.
But, like, I'm not the biggest fan of those kinds of trailers. I mean, like, even stuff like, even if not from a cameo standpoint, as much as I love the movie, I believe this is on yours as well, is the BVS trailer run. Not so much cameos, but the fact that over the course of 3 trailers going into the movie, we kind of knew all the plot points.
And then Doomsday showed up.
And then Doomsday showed up. And it was like, okay, so they're going to fight for a little bit and then team up with Wonder Woman in the end. And that's exactly what happens.
And then Superman's going to die.
Yeah. So it was just very, like, I love BVS. I love the movie. But the trailers were just so... They were too revealing. They were just too revealing in terms of plot. Like, I don't want to go into a movie knowing the cameos you're going to have, knowing your plot points, to where I'm in the movie theater and into the second act going, okay, so I'm assuming they're going to team up like in the next 20 minutes. Like, I don't want to know that.
You don't want to know or have a predictive estimate as to what's going to happen in the movie beat per beat. You want to go in, because I think the main point that I wanted to try and get across with this segment is that a trailer does not need to spoon feed the audience as to what is going to happen in the movie. It needs to get you excited enough to go see what's going to happen. Not, hey, here's every story beat that's going to happen. Please come watch our movie. And here's that one character that you wanted to show up.
Yeah.
I have an example on here. It's not even a superhero movie. It's actually a football movie. I'm assuming you've seen it, When the Game Stands Tall,
yes.
about Saleh, or however the school's pronounced. So, first of all, decent movie, pretty good movie. It's about, for those of you who don't know, it's about the high school team that had like 120-something game winning streak that spanned several years, and the current team in the movie, they ended up breaking the streak, and then they had to overcome a lot of adversity, and at the very end they won the championship and everyone was happy again. But I hadn't seen the movie yet whenever it first came out, and I went and watched the trailer. Not only did you see them losing the streak, you saw that the main coach had a heart attack. You saw them in the final game, and they were kicking the game-winning field goal. I'm like, I know exactly what's going on.
Exactly how
like,
this is
it's
gonna
almost
play
like
out.
they just like, hey, can we take the movie and put in about a 2-minute window?
Yeah.
And just put that. It's like that. As good as the movie was, I'm like, I know exactly what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes, all the way up until the very end of the movie.
Yeah.
And it completely, not that it ruined the experience, because like I said, it is a good movie, but
hurts it a little bit.
It hurt, you know. And so that's an example of a bad trailer with a good movie.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, my biggest point in this is I miss the old trailers, man. Like, the most recent example, and this isn't me saying this as a Batman fanboy, this is me saying this, like, unbiasedly, the Batman trailers were great.
Yes.
Because we didn't know what was going to happen.
Yes.
We had an idea. We knew Riddler was the villain, but that was it.
We knew Penguin, Catwoman, Batman, and Riddler were in it, but other than that, we didn't
know what was going to happen.
We knew that Riddler was killing people. We didn't know why.
Like, it was just so, to the point to where they're like, hey, here you go. Here's your little piece. We're not going to tell you anything else. Come watch it if you want to find out.
Exactly.
I mean, other great examples are like the amazing Spider-Man trailers. I remember being 12 years old, and when those trailers were coming out, being so excited. The first Avengers trailer is a great example. The other thing for me is like, we're at a point where movies are releasing like 4 trailers.
Yeah.
Like 4 trailers and 5 TV spots. Hey, let's just do 2. Yeah. Let's do 2 trailers and 3 TV spots.
You give you like a teaser, an official, and then maybe one other TV spot if you want it. I think
we don't need 4, because then the issue you run into, BVS is a good example, where if you're releasing all these official trailers, because there is a difference between a teaser trailer and an official trailer, correct?
Yes, okay. The teaser trailer is like a 30-second, a minute spot where it's just like, here's the movie we're doing, here's a couple shots from it.
Gotcha. So when you're releasing this many official trailers, it's like, okay, well, if we're doing 4 of them, well, we can't show the 2.5 minutes we showed in the first, second, or third one.
We got to give them some new stuff.
We got to give them new stuff that's going to show even more of the story and even more of the characters. It's like, we don't need 4 trailers. Give us a teaser, 2 official. That's it.
Yes.
That's all we need. Yes. And it used to be that was enough. That used to be enough. And I just feel like in this age of social media, people are trying to get clicks and retweets and shares and everything else.
Which we're trying to do anyway, but that's...
Besides the point.
Yes.
To the point to where it's hurting the films. I'm very interested to see what James Gunn will do with the Superman trailers. I'm very curious to see what those end up looking like. But just, for me, I'm still very excited to go see Deadpool. I just think that that's a great example of we didn't need 4 trailers. We didn't need this many cameos. Also, with this last trailer, this 4th trailer, we know what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so Deadpool needs Wolverine to save his existence. All right, well, I guess we'll go watch it now. Yeah. Like, it's just, there's no, I'm not saying there's not any suspense, because obviously there is, but it's a lot like watching a wrestling match that you obviously it's scripted, you don't know what's going to happen, but you kind of have an idea. Yeah. It's like, all right, it's WrestleMania 29, Undertaker's not losing. It's like versus where it's a match where there's been a bunch of build and it's been pretty evenly set. You don't know who's winning, and it makes the match that much more enjoyable. I just hope that as we continue into this new wave of superhero movies with the MCU doing Fantastic Four and hopefully this Blade movie gets going and maybe we're getting this Daredevil reboot and everything else. It's just like, guys, let's get back to the early 2010s of trailers where trailers were great and we didn't need 4 of them with a bunch of cameos. But that's all I have to say in closing.
I'll touch on one last thing and then we can move on because I know this segment's probably running a little longer than it needs to. But one trailer I did want to bring up. It's a good trailer for a bad movie. It's actually the official Force Awakens trailer.
Ooh.
So the reason why I think this is a good trailer and what the last point I kind of wanted to touch on was with the official Force Awakens trailer, if you go back and watch it, it is obviously cinematic, but like it in and of itself is almost like a mini movie without spoiling the movie itself. So like in the trailer, we get to see Rey for the first time. We know that she's abandoned on a planet. We get to see Kylo Ren for the first time. We know that he is wanting to continue on Darth Vader's legacy. And then you get to see a bunch of space battles, and you get to see Han and Chewie for a very brief moment. We don't get to see Luke Skywalker. We have no idea what Kylo Ren's plan is. We get to see, which again, I think it's terrible in how they fleshed out his character, but like we get to see Finn with a lightsaber and like he might be able to fight Kylo. Like there was a lot of interesting things that were happening in that trailer, but they gave you just enough where you knew Han Solo and Chewie were going to be in it. You knew that Finn might fight Kylo, and you knew that Rey was kind of like the main character of the story. That was about it, and we got to see a bunch of battles, and the music was fantastic. So I would like that. The trailer itself is better than the movie. Like the movie is like, it's okay, but like the trailer did a fantastic job, and maybe it's just because I'm a Star Wars fan, but even going back and rewatching it, knowing how terrible the sequel trilogy ended up being, it is still kind of like kind of gets me excited a little bit. Like the music, the visuals, everything, like the almost like what could have been, the possibilities of what could have happened in that trilogy. But I mean, even to your point with the Batman, like a trailer should be in and of itself a cinematic experience where at the very end you're like, I have no idea what's going to happen in this movie. I have a very vague idea, but I want to go see what happens and how it plays out. That's what it should be. And if you watch the Batman, The Force Awakens, and some trailers from the early 2000s, 2010s, it's like it gets you excited for the movie, and that's about it. It's not just like, hey, here's a character that we know that you've wanted or that you've wanted to see for a while and you haven't seen since whenever. Go see the movie because they're in it. It's like, okay, that's not story. That's just smoke and mirrors and like, hey, look at this. It's like, it's not, it's cheap, essentially. So anyways, after that, we're gonna go into we're gonna briefly talk about the boys' season wrapping up.
We're just going to briefly touch on this. Won't be too long. Just wanted to give some thoughts. So the boys wrapped season 4. My overall thoughts about season 4. I thought it was a little weak. I thought this season. I don't think it was the worst season by any means. I think season 2. Not that any of them are bad, but if we're ranking, I think it's probably the third best season. Season 1 and 3 being the top 2. Season 3 was just so good, but there was a lot of filler in this season, which you kind of needed. If you know anything about, if you've read the comics, which I haven't, but I have followed the show and I've done my, I've done my research into key points of the sagas of the comics. Right. So the season finale was a good wrap up. It got us excited for season 5. I was not it was a little bit. I don't know if anticlimactic is the word because a lot did happen. It wasn't as heavy as I thought it was going to be.
Do you think that the build-up wasn't justified by the
payoff?
Payoff.
Yes and no, because I think in terms of story, I think it did a perfect job of setting up the 5th season. I think in terms though of where I would say yes, it didn't fulfill it in certain ways, was I would think the entire season of build-up, the stuff with A-Train and the stuff with Homelander, the stuff with Butcher, it felt like, oh, somebody's dying and it's going to be really bad. There's going to be some big fight. And there's not really any fight in the final episode. There are some deaths. I won't tell you who if you haven't seen it. If you have seen it, which I thought the deaths were impactful and important. It's not that by any means, but it just wasn't what we were expecting. I did it, like I said, I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the season finale. I thought Homelander was great. I will say that I think of the downfalls of season 4, or the cons maybe of season 4, I thought Anthony Starr, this may have been his best season yet. I mean, he was on another level. Anytime he was on screen this season, it was money. He was also very unintentionally funny, which was great. The new characters that they added this season, I think, are coming together perfectly, especially Sage. Especially the ending we get with Sage is great. The conversation she has with Homelander, she's reminds me a lot of Riddler, where she's so smart that it's I don't want money, I don't want fame. It's the payoff, the game, the motivation to me is, can I outsmart everybody else? So it's a cool dynamic to see her and the blunt powerfulness of Homelander. I think it's a great pairing. I'm very excited to see where season 5 goes, with it ending with the way it ended with Huey and Starlight, and then MM and Kamiko and Frenchie. The way that's not a trio. The way that pairing got split up and the way things happened was very I'm very interested to see why the Soups were able to get away, but the Huey and Frenchie normal people were not. If you know, you know. I don't understand why. Maybe if you're a boys fan, you can tell us why in the comics. I was watching that and I was like, wait, why did they take them? But all that being said, I'm very excited. I think season 5 will be great. The only thing I'm not looking forward to is that we've got to wait 2 years for it.
Yeah.
By the way, I was talking to you about that the other day. They haven't even finished writing it.
Well, that's probably why it's going to be another 2 years.
So correct me if I'm wrong here, as someone with a film degree. Is that poor planning? If you had a season to come out, so there's 8 episodes in a week. So you had 2 months of a show. It started 2 months ago. Let's say they wrapped last year. So from the time of wrapping season 4 to not even having finished writing the 5th season now, is that poor planning, or is that just taking due diligence?
It could be poor planning. 9 times out of 10, when issues arise within media in general, whether it's a TV show, a movie, whatever it is, it's usually one of 2 things. It's either 1, creative differences, or 2, it's funding. That's usually most of the time when there's issues with a film or a TV show. Those are the 2 issues that it comes down to. So either they couldn't figure out where they wanted season 5 to go, or they were having issues with production and trying to get funding and all of that. Because most of the time, especially when you're talking about a TV show, a lot of the times when you're watching whatever, like, you know, if you're watching season 4 of The Boys, typically they would have already filmed and or wrapped on season 5, and they'd be going into post-production to try and get it out by next year.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that would usually be one. It's usually one of those two. Very rarely is it something else. But one thing I actually wanted to ask you, because as a person who hasn't really seen The Boys, I wanted to get your thoughts on this, because I've seen people on the internet talking, especially those who haven't really sat down and watched The Boys, and I wanted to ask you this, do you think that The Boys, especially in this season, are relying too much on shock value over story to move the plot along? Because as someone looking outside in, I also know that The Boys is one of those shows where it's R-rated, it's very, you know, can be crass and cruel and violent and all of that. But I have noticed that with season 1, there's like maybe 1 or 2 scenes where it's like it gets gruesome. But like with this season, it was like every single episode that came out, there was something that happened where it's like, oh my gosh. Like it was almost every week where that was happening.
I would say... Let me ask. When you're asking, let me define what you're asking by shock value. When you mean shock value, do you mean the event taking place or the way it's done?
I mean, whether it's violence, whether it's just a really weird, freaky scene, or...
So you're talking about just the writing of it?
Yes. Like, do you think that they're relying on that too much and not putting enough into the story? Do you think they're relying on shock value to progress the story? Like,
in this season, I would say yes.
So?
Because of the fact that there were so many... So, like, I will... Just a little bit of context. We are both Christians.
Yes.
I will tell you that. Had I not already been 4 seasons into the show, probably wouldn't have watched it. But I'm already 4 seasons in. I want to see how it wraps up.
Right.
But specifically in this season, you know, man, I think because there were so many filler episodes, in those filler episodes there was like...
They needed something in the episode to talk about.
To me, the only episode where it was justified and it made sense was when Homelander went back to the lab where he was raised. And he confronts all the doctors, and he confronts all the owners and behind-the-scenes people. When he's tearing those people apart, it's like, I get it. Right. Because he's already a vile, evil man, and he's seeking revenge in the most brutal way he can. That made sense.
Right.
But as the show progressed with some of the other fights and just events that take place, it was kind of like, not even from a, I will say, saying it from this, because I just clarified that we are both Christians, not even from a religious standpoint of like, oh, I don't want to see that. It was more of like you make the other scenes that need to feel impactful not as impactful.
Right.
That I want to clarify. That's not my reason for saying that. It's because when something happens in episode 3 and you're like, oh my gosh, and then it happens again in 4, you're like, oh, okay. Like it's just, it kind of takes away some of that oomph to it and importance to it. I also felt like there were just scenes we didn't need, or that we didn't need them to transpire the way they did. I will say, with the way our society is and everybody loves seeing crap like that, right. I'm sure to the writers of the show, they're like, oh, this is great. But especially going into season 5, like, I feel like some of that should have been saved for the big finale when it's the apocalypse, more or less. So to answer your question, yes, I do at certain points. Other points, I think it was justified and it made sense for the story. Other points, it was just like you didn't really, where as I'm watching it, I'm kind of like, okay, all right, we're doing this now. So yes and no, that would be my answer to that. But,
okay, I just wanted to ask because like I've been seeing people talking about that. I wanted to ask someone who's seen The Boys.
Yeah, I think there's definitely elements to it that are. I think there are elements to it that aren't. But all that being said, that was just a quick little recap of season 4 going into season 5. I guess we'll touch on it in 2 years whenever that comes out.
Yeah.
But after that, we're going to go straight into Read of the Week. For this week's Read of the Week, I just have the first volume here, but I'm talking about the run. The Christopher Priest Deathstroke run in the Rebirth timeline that DC was doing. I have very mixed feelings about this. As y'all know, I'm a big Deathstroke fan, And this is one of those, when this was wrapped and done, everybody was like, this is the greatest run of Deathstroke ever. I don't agree with that. I like Deathstroke's run in the New 52 more. That being said, I think the peaks of this are better, but I think there's a little bit more that weighs it down compared to the New 52. But that also could just be my taste. So all that being said, if you like Deathstroke, pick this up for sure. It's his second best run. If you like Deathstroke, pick it up. I just think, for me, when I'm reading Deathstroke or I'm watching Deathstroke, I'm not the biggest fan when they tie his family into everything. I'm just not. I don't think that there's not times for it. Excuse me. I don't think there's not times for it. I don't think that there aren't stories where it makes sense. But I feel like a lot of times writers will rely on that to make a story longer. Because Priest did a really long run. The omnibus is huge. But I just feel like there were, so to me, right, in the actual 7-volume or 5-volume, whatever it is, of just the trade rebirth runs, the first 2 books are the best books. I think from 3 to 5, it gets a little, with Jericho and Rose, and Slade kind of takes in this daughter, and he's got his own team, and it just became very...
You think it became unfocused?
Yeah, yes and no. It became unfocused. To me, it became too... It felt too much like if you were going to watch let's say in the Justice League, the animated series, they did a 3-part Deathstroke episode, and in the first episode, it's like all Deathstroke and Deathstroke doing Deathstroke things, and then part 2 and 3 are about Rose and Jericho. And you're like, okay, this was not why I was watching this. That's kind of what I'm saying here. Where I do talk about where I think the peaks are phenomenal, though, is, like I said, the first 2 books of this are phenomenal. The Deathstroke Arkham book is phenomenal. It's one of my favorite Deathstroke reads. The Deathstroke and Batman trade is phenomenal. You get to see Deathstroke and Superman go throw hands in this run.
Oh, that's awesome.
Phenomenal. The Teen Titans stuff in this is really good. So there's some Teen Titans tie-ins to this. They're not technically Deathstroke titles, but it's of this run, this story. There's 2 tie-ins. It's the Lazarus Contract, and I can't remember the other title off the top of my head, but they're both Titan books. Those are both great, especially Lazarus Contract. I really enjoyed Lazarus Contract. So yeah, all that being said, I think the peaks of this are great, which, hey, guess what? All those peaks I just talked about are all just Deathstroke.
Which is kind of what you want from a Deathstroke.
Now, that being said, the Teen Titans run do involve his son Grant, but at that point in time, Grant's a grown man. He's taken on his own identity. He's doing his own thing. In that run, you also get to see Deathstroke activate Godspeed. There's some really cool stuff. But like I said, read this if you're a Deathstroke fan, also because, there's not a ton of Deathstroke content. He's in a lot of stuff, but actual Deathstroke runs. There's not a ton of them.
Right.
So definitely pick this up. These trades are in stores right now, but if you want to pick up the Omni, you got to go buy it online. But yeah, all that being said, I really do enjoy this run. There's some trades, some run or books that kind of feel like a chore to get through, but they are needed for the development of the story if you want to know what's happening into the post Deathstroke Rebirth runs and then into the Teen Titan tie-ins. Those are great, like I said. So all that being said, definitely pick this one up. Definitely give this a go. If you're a Teen Titans fan, you'll love it. If you're a Batman, because I think Rebirth's Batman's really underrated. And that's one of my favorite Batman Rebirth books is the Batman Deathstroke book. That's great. So give this one a go. Pick this one up at your store. You can get the individual issues or trades, like I said, or you can go get the Omni. Sorry for the cut. We just had some technical difficulties. We're having issues with our, the audio receptor?
With the audio.
Whatever it is. Everything will be back to normal next week. I know that we had issues this week and we had issues about a month back. Crisis is cured, though. We figured out what it is. So we figured out what it is. This will not be a continuing issue going forward. So just for these next 10 to 15 minutes, it'll be off.
Yeah.
Stick around, though. We got some good stuff. So anyway, all that being said, so most of this run should be in the omnibus. I do not know if the Teen Titans spin-offs are in the omnibus. Don't quote me if they are or not. I don't want you to go spend like $150 on that Omni and then not be in it. Double check. Definitely double check. All the trades kind of vary. Like this one's $17. I do know that some of them have different. Like it might be $19.99, $15. It kind of ranges depending on the thickness and the amount of story in the book. I also do know that I do believe that the trades, the Batman, Deathstroke, and the Deathstroke Arkham are a little bit more. They're all worth it though. There's a bunch of different ways you can get these stories. You decide. Definitely need to be on your shelf though, and that is this week's Read of the Week. Okay, so for end of this week's cycle, this month's cycle, we are going to be doing Pitchathon.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit for our avid viewers. What we have decided for this 4th week's episode, I know we've only done this once and it's been like a month and a half or whatever it's been. We did a Mount Rushmore segment like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So what we've decided going forward is depending on what's going on that month, we'll just kind of alternate. So expect on 4th week of cycle to either be Pitchathon or a Mount Rushmore segment of some kind. This week will be...
Or something else we make up.
It's a variable week. So for this Pitchathon, same as last time, 3 categories, same rules apply. If we are at a stalemate and cannot decide who wins a certain round, we will cut and come back with a new example of that category or a new pitch for that category. Mm-hmm. This week's categories are going to be in order: a video game pitch, I read that backwards.
Yes.
A 8-episode limited series pitch, so think like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka, Captain America, those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. A video game pitch, and then a animated film pitch.
Yep.
So we're shaking it up. These are all 3 brand new categories from what we had done the first time. So I'll go ahead and let you start with your 8-episode pitch.
All right, so we'll try and keep this a little shorter than we did last time, but I will very briefly go through what my 8-episode series is. So essentially it's a Gotham by Gaslight 8-episode series.
Okay.
So essentially how it starts is first kind of third of the series is it's just Batman with Oswald Cobblepot and his gang and all of that. They're causing amok, gun running, drugs, all those things, scummy Gotham City, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, and Batman's not doing it, all of a sudden all of them start getting killed. And he doesn't know what's going on, he can't figure out what it is, so obviously that'll lead into, if you've seen the movie, or the animated movie, or the, you've read the comic, that it's basically, Gotham by Gaslight is essentially Batman versus Jack the Ripper. We're still keeping that in this.
That element.
Yes. So someone starts killing all the members of the gang, and then he starts going after people in authority, so the cops.
Okay.
And there's an attempt on the mayor's life. It almost becomes he's still a serial killer, but it almost becomes he's almost like a terrorist at a certain point. So essentially what it all boils down to is that Alfred is the one who's been doing all of this, because this is set in 18th century London, or it's not London, Gotham. So essentially around that time there were a lot of small wars that, or I should say earlier in the century, there were a lot of small wars that the United Kingdom was involved in. Mm-hmm. And it would make sense with how old Alfred would be that he would be involved in those wars.
Right.
And so kind of think a lot like a villain from the Vietnam era who was in part of the United States or in the Viet Cong or whatever, and just sees all the horrors of war and everything like that, mm-hmm. where they basically become all authority is bad, everyone who's been involved in this war is bad, I have to cleanse the earth of all of these evil men who want to destroy our very way of life and all of that. Okay. So then at the very end of the movie, obviously Batman would figure out that it's Alfred, and so kind of similar to where you have in the original movie, Commissioner Gordon was the serial killer. Obviously now it's Alfred, so you get a climactic fight where Alfred's a little younger. He's not a 70-year-old man. Maybe he's in his mid-50s, or he's not quite on the decline physically, but obviously he's still older. And obviously you'd have a younger Batman, so mid, maybe late 20s Batman. So he's still new, but he's
not at his peak.
Not at his peak yet. So then you get that climactic fight between him and Alfred, but like Alfred wouldn't die. He would go to like a mental facility, and then like Batman would have to live with that.
Okay.
So kind of a twist, because like I think an 8-episode series of Gotham by Gaslight would be awesome, but if it was beat for beat of what the movie was, it'd be kind of boring.
Yeah.
Because we know what would happen.
Yeah.
So I think if you add the element of Oswald being maybe the villain in the first couple of episodes, and then it switches to either whether you want to call him a serial killer or a terrorist or whatever it is, you have that element, and then it's a different person.
Okay.
So that would be my pitch for the 8-episode series.
Okay, so my pitch for a 8-episode limited series is a Darth Maul series.
Okay.
So my pitch is this is post Return of the Jedi. So Maul is, you'll know that. How old is Maul at that time?
He's in his 50s, I think.
Yeah, 40s, 50s, somewhere around there. So essentially, my entire pitch. Should we wait for that?
Is that the fridge?
Yeah. Honestly, it'll probably be fine. I'll be able to pick it up from all the way over there.
I wouldn't think so either.
Alright,
I might try and go through the...
Alright, here, hang on.
Perfect.
So, at this time, what's happening is, it's obviously the Empire is in rubble. They are trying to rebuild. Maul wants nothing to do with it, obviously.
Yeah.
So this is very similar to his attempt in the Clone Wars at running the underworld.
Okay.
So what's going to happen, though, is the way he's going to start doing this is he wants to start picking up bounties. Because you need credits to build any kind of an empire. You need some kind of financial backing.
Okay.
So he starts going to collect bounties.
Mm.
What happens during that is he starts stepping on other bounty hunters' territory. So Bosk, he runs into Han and Chewie at one point.
Okay.
There's obviously Boba Fett's. When is the? Because I wrote down Boba Fett, but I didn't want that to be incorrect, and you would know. What is the timeline of could I technically say that he's back by that point?
Yeah, I think you could, because I think whenever he escapes the Sarlacc pit, it's supposed to be like a year after the events of Return of the Jedi.
Oh, so definitely.
So in theory, it could work.
Okay, so in that case, he runs into Boba Fett. He kills everybody. So he kills Bosk. He kills Boba Fett. He does not kill Han and Chewie. Obviously, escape.
Right.
It's Han and Chewie. But he's built.
So is this a what if or?
No, this is
like it would be canon.
Yeah, this would be canon.
Okay.
This would be canon, and that's how I get around the Boba Fett killing because this is post. He's already done the stuff in Mandalorian, so Boba Fett's just being Boba Fett at this point in time. Also, I'm going off of comics. I'm not going off of Disney's crap.
Right.
So after killing all this happens in the first 3 episodes. Mm-hmm. We're starting quick. So after he kills all of these bounty hunters, no one knows it's Maul yet. Mm-hmm. People don't know he's back. They don't know. They just know all these people have been killed with lightsabers. That's all that they know. They can't figure anything else out. Okay. So the last bounty hunter he kills is obviously Boba Fett. That's the finality of that 3-episode arc. He kills Boba Fett. Uh-huh. And it goes throughout the galaxy that Boba Fett's been killed by a lightsaber user. Uh-huh. Transitions into Darth Maul revealing himself to these underworld empires. Think similar to Red Hood and Under the Red Hood when he shows up with a bag of heads. Okay. So Maul's going to show up with a bag of heads. Okay. So he's got Boba Fett's head, he's got Bosk's head, he's got a couple other no-name or lesser-known bounty hunters' heads. Okay. He shows up, he's in his hood, the whole deal. He's called this anonymous meeting with all these heads of these underworld organizations. Mm-hmm. And he plants the bag on the table and he goes, I did this in 2 weeks. Do you want to see what I can do if you do not go with me? So obviously they're all all right. Darth Maul it's not just he starts running a organization. He's running the entire black market underworld of the universe at this time. He's the kingpin. Okay? What ends up happening over that arc is I like the idea. Let's create a new Jedi. A prodigy, if you will. And a young, maybe he's got some ties to Luke, maybe he doesn't, but he's very tapped into the Force. Okay. He's counterpart to Maul in that he's very aggressive. Mm-hmm. He's very aggressive in a honorable way, though he knows how to use it. He knows how to harm, but that's one of his strengths.
Okay.
And he's a little bit older. He's not like 16. He's like 21, 22. He's a little bit older. He is from, similar to Anakin, he is from one of these worlds that is being controlled by Maul's empire. Okay. Or Black Mark, I don't want to say empire because it's a little on the nose, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, I'm not having this. And so he starts going through and taking out outposts. And when he's taking out outposts, he's so angry. There's no mercy. Think very Star Killer. He's taking dudes out. Okay. Taking dudes out, killing their supply. Obviously, Maul ends up getting word of this. Mm-hmm. So the way I have this series wrap up is there's in episode 6 and 7. So from 1 to 3, it's Maul taking everybody out. Mm-hmm. From 4 going into 5 it's setting up Maul's reign, how he's just reigning over all these groups. Okay. Season 5 and 6 are this young new Jedi taking everybody out. Maul getting word, and he's like, all right, I'll go take care of them. Mm-hmm. Season 7, I keep saying season. Episode 7, the entire episode is Maul and this young Jedi are they're both looking for each other. Mm-hmm. Maul has told his second in command, hold everything down, I've got to go find this guy. Don't contact me, I need to get in the zone, I'm going to find this kid and kill this guy because he's destroying our prophets right now. Okay. It leads into this I want you to think like Phantom Menace fight, because we've seen, granted the shows haven't been great, we've seen the quality these TV shows can give in terms of fights. Right. So we see this, I'm talking Phantom Menace, Revenge of the Sith, just this brutal fight. It's not elegant. It's like brutal. Okay. And they're talking to each other during it. This isn't a silent fight. Uh-huh. He's like, you killed my world. You killed what I was raised. Like, he's talking as Maul's talking to him, and Maul's kind of being like very similar to the Obi-Wan first Maul fight, where it's kind of Maul's like, all right, come on, kid. Like, like I'm not really even trying yet. This is I'm giving this fight 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. They're going back and forth. The way this ends is you've got a shot from here up of them both going for a move, and everybody stops. Like this. Pans down. Maul, just like he did to Qui-Gon, gets this in the exact same pose, gets this guy through the stomach. This kid, though, gets Maul, because obviously when Maul plants and he does that, he plants like this. Mm-hmm. This kid gets him right through the shoulder blade, and it goes back out the other side of his chest. And so they both fall and collapse. He obviously dies, and Maul's laying there. Maul gets up after he's been there 2 days. He's laid there, let his wound kind of cauterize and heal. He's laid there for 2 days. And he's like, if this is what ruling this empire means, I don't want any part of it. It's too much trouble. Mm-hmm. So the episode 8 is a time jump. It's been 20 years. Okay. Been 20 years. 15 maybe. And Maul's just kind of been a wonder. He's lived a pretty peaceful existence. He's found peace and enjoyment. But he gets word of Obi-Wan again. He hears about how people have located Obi-Wan again. And that immediately he's like, I'm going to go find Obi-Wan before I die. The episode is him finding Obi-Wan. The last shot of the show is Maul walking onto a desert in Tatooine at night, and gray hair, gray beard Obi-Wan sitting at a fire. And it redoes the sequence from Rebels. Okay. Show ends.
Okay, so here's the thing about your idea. I think there's some really good components to that. Mm-hmm. I do like the building of criminal empire. The issue with having shows or movies within the Star Wars universe is that if you break canon at any point, the Star Wars fans will crucify you. Right. So the issue is that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you said that you wanted Maul, you wanted this to be post-Return of the Jedi. Is that what you said?
Well, but not like 2 weeks after. Just like,
I know.
Post that movie.
It's after Return of the Jedi. Okay, yes. That can't happen.
How?
Maul dies before episode 4. He's not alive in the events of the original trilogy.
I thought he was. Then how is he in when we play Age of the Empire in Battlefront? Maul's
Because
a
it's
usable...
Battlefront.
No, but I mean he's classified as a that time period villain.
Because whenever Battlefront was made, the Rebels episode had already come out, so he's technically within the rights of he's in that era, but he doesn't actually, like, the scene that you see in Rebels happens a couple of years before A New Hope. It doesn't happen. And also, the other issue, I'm not trying to destroy your idea, the other issue you have with that is that when you get to the point of, which I guess you kind of already touched on this, Maul had already, after the events of, we see him in Clone Wars and he escapes, he already rebuilt an empire of a criminal empire, like he did in the middle of the Clone Wars. He had already done that. So whenever you find him in Rebels, it's implied that he's kind of that's already happened. So the issue, and the last thing I would say is that as cool as it would be to see Boba and Maul going at it, I think if you were to kill Boba Fett, I think that even if it's a really cool fight, I think that would not go over with a lot of people if you killed Boba
Even
Fett.
if it was Maul.
Even if it was, yes, I agree.
So that's not the equivalent of Mace Windu killing Jango.
No, not even close.
Explain.
So Jango, because
from what I understand, Jango at his peak was better than Boba.
Yes, but the thing is that Boba Fett has become, because the thing is, I agree. In the movies, if you just watch the movies, Jango is better than Boba Fett.
Right.
The issue is that Boba Fett has become almost this mythological, godlike character in a lot of Star Wars people's minds. And so if you were to, like, a Boba Fett fan from the 80s, if you were to...
So he's Batman of Star Wars.
Yes. So if you were to have Darth Maul, especially a Darth Maul who is a little older, if you were to have him kill, and I'm not saying that he couldn't, that's not the argument I'm making, is that if you do that, I think that a lot of people would be turned on by the show.
Well, I guess you take that round because my entire idea falls apart in terms of timeline.
I think if you had reworked some of that and got the timeline correct, I think that could have been a really good show. I do also think that the Jedi that you're wanting, I think that he doesn't have to be a main Jedi like a Yoda or a Mace Windu, that's all I'm saying. If you had a Jedi that has appeared in other things and is named, I think that would go over a little better as well.
What? By the way, wait, so when does that movie Solo take place?
Solo takes place between 3 and 4.
Oh, I've never seen it, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because I know Maul shows up at the end, so I was like, wait, he's in it, though.
Yeah, because Han Solo's like a 20-year-old or whatever. Like, he's around Luke's age. Because in A New Hope, Han Solo's like 32 or something like that.
I gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah, so you take that round. As I've reiterated a bunch, I will say this for everyone, because obviously anyone who's a Star Wars fan like him saw the error in my idea 2 minutes in.
I wanted to let you talk because I didn't know if it was going somewhere, and I wanted you to get your idea.
You should have definitely cut me off and let me know.
Well, no,
I
wanted to see if there was going to be anything that would bring it back, and I wanted you to have your idea, but like...
So yeah, I've said it before, I'm a very casual Star Wars fan. That shows it. Yeah, so my timeline's completely off. Okay, so you take one. You take one here. Okay, alright.
Which, if you...
I will say, I feel like had I done that correctly, my idea.
If you had reworked it and got the timeline correct and maybe excluded Boba Fett, I think that you would have won.
Gotcha.
Because mine is literally just like I borrowed an idea from something else and just
redid
it. That's
okay. All right. So what is your video game pitch?
So my video game pitch, it's a Deathstroke game.
Okay.
But here's the plot. So very similar to Gotham Knights, the beginning of the game it's a climactic fight between Batman and Deathstroke.
Okay.
And it'll be kind of more. It's not gonna be like Arkham Origins fight. It's gonna be more. If you do get to play it, it'll be quick time events. It won't actually be like the fight itself, or it'll just be a cinematic.
Okay.
So Deathstroke and Batman are fighting. Deathstroke loses. He goes to prison. Goes to some, whether it's Blackgate or some other federal prison, maximum security, whatever. The game opens up. As Slade Wilson, you escape the prison.
Okay.
And then it goes to a time jump of a couple years. I don't know.
Yeah.
Between 2 and 5. Deathstroke has been going around the world as Deathstroke does. He's been taking out. He's a mercenary. He's a bad guy. He's going after some bad guy says, "Hey, I need you to go kill this person." That's what he goes and does. So he's traveling around the world doing all these different things. It opens back up with you doing a mission where you're going and taking out. You didn't know it was, but you're going and taking out a U.S. operative.
Okay.
It could be Asia. It could be. I don't really want it to be in Europe because I feel like Europe's a little too civilized. It could be like somewhere in Southeast Asia. It could be in South America, Mexico, Latin America.
Right. Somewhere in one of those
somewhere
places.
like that. So you find out this guy was a member of the CIA, FBI, one of the 4 or 3-letter organizations. He doesn't know that, and had he known that, he wouldn't have taken him out because he knows what would have happened. Right. Guess who gets word of this?
Batman.
Amanda Waller.
Oh, okay.
Amanda Waller gets word of this, and he completely whatever region it's in, he completely destabilizes the region because they were doing a long-term sting operation where they were trying to get rid of a drug lord or
gotcha. Okay.
something like that.
Yeah.
Completely destabilizes the nation, causes chaos in that nation. Amanda Waller's like, okay, Deathstroke is too much of a threat to just have him out, and we've been looking for him since he got out of prison. I'm going to send the Suicide Squad to go take out Deathstroke. So then the rest of the game is Deathstroke, kind of similar to Kill the Justice League, but in reverse, where you're playing as Deathstroke and you're trying to either escape or kill every member of the Suicide Squad. And it can be, the Suicide Squad, it doesn't have to be like, obviously Deathstroke wouldn't be in it, but like I'm not going to have Black Adam or Black Manta or anything like that. It'd be like
a more street tier
Harley Quinn, Killer Shark, Captain Boomerang, if you want to throw Killer Frost in there. Like, and you can maybe have another character that has maybe been in the Suicide Squad before or not. But that'll be the rest of the game. And then at the very end of the game, you have to go and confront Amanda Waller. And then Batman shows up. You have a Arkham Origin style fight with Batman again. But Batman or Deathstroke wins, but like due to the circumstances of the fight, he's not able to do the killing blow. He has to escape. Okay. And then he goes back on the run again, and then you can set it up for a second game.
Right. Okay. All right. So mine's, I'm not gonna lie, man. I think you got you beat because mine's yours, but just a little bit amped up.
A little. Is it a Deathstroke game?
Not exactly.
Okay.
So my video game pitch is it is a mercenary DC mercenary game. So the way this game opens is there's a big think the party at the beginning of Uncharted 4.
Okay.
It's in this remote kind of not castle, but this crazy insane looking mansion in like a mountain of Europe that no one would know where it was. And at the time there's all these nameless trillionaires that run the world in this. They're having cigars, they're drinking, they're smoking, they're doing whatever.
Right.
And what happens is they start talking about certain mercenaries they've hired for certain jobs. Oh, I've hired Black Manta, I've hired Deathstroke, I've hired Bane, I've hired, Bronze Tiger, I've hired whoever. They start listing them off.
Okay.
They start getting into kind of, the guy I hired was better. Like, oh, okay, Jones, this wasn't a good year quarterly, huh? You had to hire Bullseye. Like, stuff like, or not Bullseye, but stuff like that where they're kind of making, kind of like, oh, you didn't hire Deathstroke, huh? Kind of stuff like that. Then someone goes, well, what do you say we find out? And everybody's like, what do you mean we find out? Well, we could send an anonymous invitation to each of our selected mercenary or assassin and see how that goes. And they're like, sure, because they're evil trillionaires. To them, it's like, yeah, for the fun of it, why not?
Okay.
So this is my lineup: Deathstroke, Bane, Black Manta, Deadshot, Copperhead.
Okay.
Copperhead, and what's her name? Lady Shiva.
Okay.
Those 6 get an invitation, like a sealed with like a wax thing invitation. Show up here, black tie though, no suits, black tie. So they all show up. They're escorted into this ballroom essentially, And they're like, Shiva? Slade? What? Like, obviously they all know each other. Mm-hmm. And then someone's even, like, says something to Manta, like, shouldn't you be in the ocean? Like, kind of like, what are we all doing here? And all of the 6 trillionaires walk out. They explain what's going to happen. Whoever wins gets X amount of money, whatever it is. Here are the rules. You have 12 hours to get back to your respective location, and then the game will begin. So the way this game plays is, as this is happening, you get to pick. So you can pick Manta, Slade, Deadshot, whoever you want to be. You go back. This is where kind of it's a little bit like Telltale starts to show up. You start the game, you get to pick who you target first. Who do you want to target? Mm-hmm. So let's say you pick Deathstroke and you want to target Black Manta. Mm-hmm. You're going to go off the coast of Miami. You're going to start asking around, kind of doing some detective work. Hey, whatever. Whoever you pick on each mission you go, it's not like a straight shot to the other mercenary. You have to go through crime bosses. You have to go through henchmen. Think Arkham kind of. Like, you have to earn your way to get there.
Right.
And this is the way everything goes. It's similar to Red Dead, similar to Telltale. As you're going through, picking choosing who you're fighting, you have to make decisions. And they'll affect your gameplay. So, like, if you're about to kill a mob boss, but his 12-year-old daughter walks in the other room, what are you going to do? Are you going to kill him in front of his daughter and then maybe you have to kill his daughter? Or are you going to let him go with the information you have? Stuff like that. So then, the way this game wraps up is, as you go to each member to take them out, what you get to decide is, after a certain point in the fight, like at the breaking point of the fight, you can decide to switch. So if you want to switch to Black Manta, you're like, you know what? I think I want to switch to Manta. I want Manta to take this. You switch. Now you're fighting who you just were. Okay. The way this game wraps up is, you take all 6 out, or you take all the other 5 assassins out of whoever you chose. Mm-hmm. Once you've killed everyone, you go back to this mansion in East Europe. You come, they all stand before you, and they essentially go, here's what we're offering. You can have this money, or there's someone that's been in our hair for a little bit that we need you to take care of, and we'll double it. And obviously your character's like, well, who is it? It's Batman. Okay. So, sets up for a second game where now whichever mercenary you chose has to go hunt and try and kill the Batman for double the stakes.
Okay. I do really like that idea.
I'm not gonna lie, man. I think I got you.
Here would be my only argument. So, my game is a little bit more straightforward. There's obviously a lot less options in your game, in my game versus your game. I think that having options in your game, in my opinion, is a good thing. You being able to choose, I think that in and of itself would probably just beat my game. Like, the ability to choose which mercenary you want to, and then going after the other ones. Mm-hmm. I think that that mechanic in and of itself would beat what I have. The only thing that I would say about that is that I do not think that you should get an option to switch if you're going after somebody and you decide that you want to switch to the other character. I think that would hurt the game in the long run.
Well, no, so the reason I say you can switch, this is the whole reason where I just said it's like Red Dead where your choices affect your thing.
Right.
If you start to, let's say you're Deathstroke, and as this level's progressing to this assassin you're trying to find, if you're making low honor decisions, it's going to affect Deathstroke when you're not controlling him. So whether it's a cutscene or it's an audio line or whatever, to the point where you're like, oh, wait, I kind of don't like who he's become now. I don't want to, I would like to switch and take him down now. That's why I provide that option.
Okay.
Is because if you've unintentionally or intentionally low honored your character to the point to where he's going to make a decision without your call, and you don't like that decision, and it's made you go, he needs to be taken care of now. Now you can be Bane and kill Deathstroke.
Right. Okay. Because the only issue I would see with that is I think the game would become too... Like, there would be way too many options, and I think that in and of itself would hurt the game. That's the only...
Well, no, so you can only do it once.
Oh.
No. You can, so it's like, it's whoever you go after first, you have that option one time.
Okay.
It's not like I'm going through 5 different people and I get to switch between all 5 different people.
Because I was about to say, that would make the game way too big.
No. It's like so let's say you pick Bane and your first character you're going after is Shiva.
Mm-hmm.
At that point you can pick.
Okay.
And then also the reason I provide that option on top of that is whatever options or whatever you're doing with Shiva, all that transfers into the following game. So like your profile will transfer into that second game. The choices you've made, the decisions you've done, who you've killed, who you switched between, that kind of idea.
Right. Because the issue that I'm seeing is, thank you for clarifying the fact that you'd only be able to switch once. Because I think if you were to switch every single time you fought, that would be.
Or the other thing, just on that point. Or you could do it like instead of it being the first one, you only have the option once.
Right.
So you could not use it at all. You could use it on your third fight when you're fighting Deadshot.
Right.
You only get to choose it one time though.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Very similar to Gotham Knights.
Right. I just don't know. I don't know if it's personal preference to me because also when you said going into the second game, whatever you choose, you get to pick off from where you left off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think. I'm thinking. How on earth would a game dev be able to know what exactly decisions you made leading up to that point to where you could then take off to a second
the same way the Telltale games are made. When you play the second Batman Telltale game, you have an option to load your previous story into the game, and and the story is affected by the previous. It's amazing. It's amazing. Okay. It makes the game completely different because then it also the other reason I like mine more is mine has more replayability. Yeah. So you can run through the story as 6 different assassins. You can run through the second story now from the decisions you made from the first one, and it looked completely different than the first 3 times you played it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll give you that one.
We got that one.
Well, yeah, because I was having a hard time wrapping my head around how the decisions would affect the game, and that there would be too many decisions, which then would make the game.
No. It's not like you're making 6 different story-altering missions.
Okay, because that's what I thought you were pitching. That's
no.
Okay, yeah. You take.
Okay, all right. So last section, we're almost done. Animated film. What is your animated film pitch?
So my animated film pitch is actually a Star Wars animated film.
Okay.
So this would be kind of similar to the DC animated films. It would be actually, I take that back. It would be in the style of Clone Wars. Released directly to Disney Plus, or if Disney Plus is not around at that time, they just do it directly to Blu-ray.
Right.
So the story is, it's actually not super complicated. So this is a backstory on Obi-Wan and Satine. So this is, if you've seen the episode arc where Obi-Wan and Satine re-meet after not seeing each other for 15 years or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's the telling of the story of Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Satine and her father trying to escape Mandalore during the Mandalorian Civil War.
Okay.
So the entire setup of the movie is that at the time, this is when Death Watch was trying to violently take over Mandalore. Kind of what they did in the Clone Wars, but this is obviously backstory. So Death Watch has captured Satine, they've captured her father, and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon have been selected for the mission to go in and basically essentially extract them from the war. They're not there to fight the war, but obviously because war is messy, that's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
So they go to the planet. And it would be, because the runtime isn't very long, the entire first part of the movie would be them trying to get to Satine and where she's located with her father. They're in the same cell, and then once they are found, they start the extraction to get them out of there. Obviously, it would be more than just a day or so, but throughout the course of the movie, the father is very skeptical of the Jedi. He's like, I don't want you here. This is not your fight. Like, you need to let me have my people. I'm not supposed to be escaping. Satine, she's a young girl. She's think kind of like Princess Leia, where she's very like, I want to help, but like she doesn't have the ability to yet.
Gotcha.
So, and then you have Obi-Wan and Satine. You can see the beginning of the blossoming of their romantic relationship. right as they're about to, right when they think that daybreak's about to come, all of them get captured again.
Okay.
They get recaptured, then they have to escape yet again, but in this escape, Satine's father dies, and so it would be kind of near the end of the movie. They're trying to escape, he dies, and they escape. So Satine, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon, they escape the planet because then the story goes after that, whenever they talk about it in the Clone Wars, is they're on the run for like a year, right? So it would be, you wouldn't see that, but it would be they're in the spaceship and they're like, so now what do we do? Like, well, we have to go on the run because they're after us, and then like they go off into the galaxy and do that. So that would be my pitch for the movie.
Okay. Okay, I have some thoughts, but I'll get to them after you can give me yours on mine.
Yeah,
so my animated film. So this is from. I would like to add caveat on why I think this is a great pitch. We are seeing DC and Marvel starting to collaborate. There was talk between Marvel and DC when they were shooting Deadpool 3. Ryan Reynolds wanted Batfleck in it.
I remember that.
They couldn't figure out the logistics, but DC was open to it. Now, this year, we're finding out DC and Marvel have come together to mutually release the DC versus Marvel Omnibus again. So we're seeing a partnership in little ways happen here and there.
Okay.
And so my pitch for my animated film is post Deadpool 3. We don't really know what's going to happen with Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, right?
Okay.
So my pitch is this is technically a DC featuring Marvel film. So it's DC's animation studio doing this.
Okay.
Lobo and Deadpool. So my pitch of this movie is it's Lobo. Lobo's chilling, doing whatever in his universe, and because of one of the time warps happening in the third Deadpool movie, a version of Deadpool shows up in Lobo's world.
Okay.
And immediately, Lobo's trying to fight and kill Deadpool. He kills Deadpool, but because Deadpool can't be killed, he reforms, and then Lobo's like, wait, you can do that too? And, also, it's Ryan Reynolds' voice.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, yes, I can do this too. He says whatever, and he's like, all right, you ain't bad, Slack. And, picks him up, and they're like, Deadpool's like, what am I doing? What's happening? Says something to the fourth wall about being in a DC property film. And so he's, right on the back of the bike. So they go off, and the entire movie is Deadpool's trying to figure out how to get back to the Marvel universe. And he keeps making jokes about, he's like, oh, I feel so dark and mysterious in this new world. Making jokes about the difference with DC and Marvel. As this movie progresses, we're seeing Deadpool interact with Harley, and we're seeing Deadpool interact with a lot of these fans that have wanted Deadpool to have certain interactions with, right?
Right.
As it's happening, Deadpool's collecting bounties. So the entire movie, it's just Deadpool helping Lobo collect bounties.
Okay.
Which obviously that I don't need to add any explanation to that. That writes itself.
Right.
The way this movie wraps up is Lobo gets a bounty received for Superman, and Deadpool's like, Superman, and he's like, yeah, and he's like, have you fought him before? And he's like, a couple times, and he's like, it's never ended well though, and he's like, shut up, we're gonna go do it, and he's like, wait just 1 second, and they start getting into it or whatever, and he's like, I'm not fighting Superman. And Lobo's like, yeah, you are. And just at that point in time, one of the portals open back up. And he's like, fine, grabs Deadpool by the neck, throws Deadpool back into the portal, it closes. There's some witty, funny line by Ryan Reynolds when he gets back. Movie ends with Lobo going to try and collect the bounty on Superman. It's just some crazy, violent, building to building, skyscraper to skyscraper battle between Lobo and Superman. Obviously, Lobo doesn't win. And the way it ends is there's a tease of another portal opening in the DC realm. And Superman's like, I've been trying to get rid of you for years. I don't know where this leads, but I hope it doesn't bring you back. Throws him. And then Deadpool's eating dinner in his apartment, and Lobo shows up in his apartment, and he's like, what are you doing here? And it ends. Setting up for a part 2 where now Lobo's in Deadpool's Marvel universe, and that's how that goes. Okay. So all that being said, I'll go into my thoughts first. I like your idea I just feel like there would be a lot of filler, and I feel like it got a little bit repetitive with they're captured, they're uncaptured, then they get captured again, and they get uncaptured, to where there's not a lot of like real big meat on that bone. It's kind of like for the first act and the end of, or the climax of the third act is them getting captured again and having to escape. Satine's father's killed. I think it would be intriguing. I just think there needs to be more, maybe external roles being introduced.
Do you mean threats or just other characters?
Maybe just other characters, other threats, just other people bringing something to the story that's not just Obi-Wan, Satine, and her dad. And it's like, all right, we're just going to kind of run this hour and a half and try and figure out how to do this. You know what I mean? Whereas with mine, I feel like it's really well flushed out. People have wanted to see Deadpool and Lobo for years together.
Yeah.
And it sets up for a second where we get to see, oh, sweet, now we get to see Lobo and Marvel.
Yeah.
That would be my take.
I mean, I don't really have anything to argue. I think you're about spot on that.
All right, well, cool deal. Well, all right, so he didn't sweep us this month. That's what matters. He won Versus and Family Feud.
I was really hoping for a clean sweep.
But he didn't sweep. I told y'all he wasn't going to sweep. So, but all right, you want to pull this out?
Yeah, well, thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Gotham Graffiti Podcast. If you would, please hit the subscribe bell. We're just trying to have a fun community here of nerds where we can talk about Obi-Wan and Deadpool. If you would, please just check us out on all of our Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Gotham Graffiti Podcast on all handles. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.